This week, the world crossed the line that many believed would never be crossed. The Strait of Hormuz, the artery of the global energy system, is effectively closed. And the consequences are already spreading far beyond the Gulf.
From Lisbon, this is Frontlines and Backrooms Brief, the stories shaping the week.
The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed, not partly, not threatened, closed. Ship traffic through the waterway that carries a fifth of the world's oil has dropped by 97% since February 28. What was once a theoretical risk is now reality. Let's start with numbers, because numbers right now are the only thing that isn't political theater. The strait normally moves about 20 million barrels of oil every day. A third of the global fertilizer trade is 16 million tons annually. The last number matters. Fertilizer is food. Food is survival. When the strait closes, it's not just petrol prices that spike. It's wheat. It's bread. It's the cost of feeding a family in Cairo, in Dhaka, in Nairobi. Oil has hit $100 a barrel, up 38% since the war began. Brent crude spiked to $120 on Monday before settling. Armaco's CEO called it catastrophic. His word, not mine. The International Energy Agency approved the largest ever release of strategic oil reserves. That's how close we are to a supply shock that makes the 1970s look mild. Iran is blocking the strait. Iran is targeting tankers. Iran bears that responsibility. But the world is in this situation because Israel and the drill baby drill president attacked first. President Trump now offers the U.S. Navy to escort tankers through the strait.
But when the time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed. I hope it's not going to be needed, but if it's needed, we'll escort them right through.
It looks like that offer will be valid only after the war. And U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Pentagon officials have officially confirmed that the U.S. Navy is not ready to escort tankers and has refused repeated requests from shipping companies to do so. Internal deliberation leaked to the press have reportedly described the Strait of Hormuz right now as a death valley. And while the Operation Epic Fury is going on, prices of gasoline and diesel in Europe are in a furious spike. The wholesale surge has hit European gas stations rapidly. Pump prices across the EU have risen by an average of 0.15 to 0.30 euro cents per liter since the start of March. Or, as the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, calculated, 10 days of war in the Gulf cost European taxpayers an additional 3 billion euros. But, according to her, no return to Russian oil.
We have energy sources that are homegrown, renewables and nuclear. Their prices have remained the same over the last 10 days. Yet in current crisis, some argue that we should abandon our long-term strategy and even go back to Russian fossil fuels. This would be a strategic blunder. It would make us more dependent, more vulnerable and weaker.
Since the cars in Europe still are not propelled by nuclear energy, Europe will need to source its oil from somewhere else. At the moment, around 30% of Europe's needs are covered by Norway, United States and Kazakhstan. The rest will need to bypass the Saudi East-West pipeline from North and West Africa and especially from Nigeria and Angola. But the strait is only part of the story. Iran is not just blocking ships, it's hitting hard and expanding a battlefield every day. In the past week, Dubai International Airport, the world's busiest for international travel, closed temporarily after a drone strike. Bahrain's main oil refinery was hit. Saudi Arabia's oil field targeted repeatedly. Drones intercepted, missiles destroyed. In Kuwait, 2 civilians were wounded by a drone that hit a residential building. Abu Dhabi's oil terminals suspended after explosive-laden boats hit 2 tankers at Qasr port. And in Jordan, 119 missiles and drones were fired at vital installations inside the country, according to its military. Iran's parliament speaker said it plainly. We aren't seeking a ceasefire. The aggressor must be punished and taught a lesson. This is not posturing. This is doctrine. And the consequences are already global. From Bangladesh, where universities and schools were closed to conserve fuel and electricity, Pakistan is asking Saudi Arabia for alternative oil routes and warning that winds from Iran might carry pollutants from bombed fuel sites. The strait is closed. The region is burning and now the entire world is paying the price. What happens next depends on how far this spreads and how long it will last. So far, no one has shown any interest in stopping. The price, as always, will be paid by citizens, not by the political class that actually brought us into this situation. Strait of Hormuz is birthplace of the crisis, which is in last 48 hours traveled and reached places most people never expected. And let's start with China. Beijing has done something it almost never does. It ordered an immediate halt to all March exports of gasoline, diesel and jet fuel. Not a reduction, a total stop. The official reason is to ensure domestic supply in case the conflict drags on. But here's what that means for the rest of the world. China is the largest fuel exporter in Asia. When China hoards supplies, buyers from Australia to Indonesia struggle. Prices rise, supply chains tighten. In Qatar, the world's largest LNG export facility, 77 million tons of capacity a year, is now stopped. Not because it was bombed, but because its storage tanks filled up in 4 days and no ships could leave to empty them. Shell, Total Energies, Asia buyers all have received force majeure notices. Contracts void, supply cut. Qatar Energy Minister said it will take weeks to months to return to normal deliveries even if the war ended today. For Europe, which bet its energy future on Qatari gas after turning away from Russia, this is not an inconvenience, it is a structural shock. Millions of travelers in the region, but around the world, are affected as well. Easter travel season is approaching and with all struggles and crises emerging almost everywhere, people are cancelling plans. The war is grounding planes and emptying wallets. For millions of families, this Easter will look very different, if they can afford to travel at all. Tens of thousands of flights are already cancelled between Asia and Europe. Ticket prices soaring ahead of Easter peak season. And then there is the human story, the one that doesn't make the energy briefing slides. 23 Thai sailors, a cargo vessel called the Mayuri Nari, heading to India, hit in the Strait of Hormuz. 20 rescued by Omani naval forces, 3 still missing. Bangkok summoned Iran's ambassador. Strong protest demanded an apology. The families wait. The Thai government scrambles. And somewhere in the Gulf, 3 sailors remain unaccounted for. They weren't soldiers. They weren't politicians. They were just trying to move cargo through a waterway that 12 days ago was still open. And this week, the war founded a new kind of target. March 2nd, drone strikes hit 3 Amazon Web Services data centers, 2 in United Arab Emirates and 1 in Bahrain. Structural damage, power disrupted, fire suspension system flooded the rest. Emirates and BD, First Abu Dhabi Bank, Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank, Kareem, HubPay, all reported significant service disruptions. Then, on March 11th, Iran's Revolutionary Guard released a list that includes, among others, Google's Dubai office and NVIDIA's R&D facility in Haifa. Their justification: these companies supply technology with direct military applications to the United States and Israeli armed forces. The line between commercial infrastructure and military target has been erased. People in Iran are being killed every day, as well as in Lebanon and across the region. The economy is still not crumbling, but it is in turmoil with consequences felt around the world. Until now, question was, will the United States and Israel offer to Iran off-ramp from this war? As crisis deepens and hitting home ground, more relevant question is, will President Trump find off-ramp for himself? Every new day is closer to the next world economic crisis. Every new day we are further from the peace. Iran didn't budge, despite claims about obliterated army, missiles launchers and navy. Instead, they have new supreme leader, with perspective that he will be more tough than his father. Lebanon, except being destroyed by Israel, with south of territory occupied, have one more worry. It is a home to Christians, Sunnis, Shias, and others. Any attempt to forcefully limit Hezbollah military power could end in civil war. And now the war has a new address: the cloud service, the data centers, the undersea cables that the global economy runs on. What happens next is not just a military question. It is a question about whether the world build its digital future on the ground that can no longer be defended. And in this week's episode of Frontlines and Backrooms podcast, we will start to make sense of all of it, starting with something that was torpedoed first: international law. I spoke with international law expert Mona Ali Khalil about the uncomfortable gap between legal principles and political reality, about sovereignty and self-defense, about international court and the politics surrounding its arrest warrants. The conversation goes directly to the core of the problem. What happens when international law is invoked selectively? Because without international law, we cannot even call a war crime a war crime. Full episode with Mona Khalil, March 15th, 8 p.m. GMT. And that's the world this week. From Frontlines and Backrooms, I'm Vladimir Bobetic, and until next time, keep looking beyond the noise.